Good day there everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Cliff. I'm a gem cutter from Australia, and in today's video I'll be featuring this minty green man-made synthetic sapphire. Now this particular color is incredibly hard to get hold of, and yes, it's incredibly expensive for what it is, being man-made. Often when you do see this, it's sold out quickly, and the prices usually average around about $10 to $13 a gram US. So what you see here is half a bull of mint green sapphire. Now these bulls are a little bit smaller than the clear sapphire or the ruby sapphires, and when they split these bulls to release the stress tension, often you get multiple fractures and they don't split very well. So if you're a gem cutter and you're not too much of a snob to say, hey, I'm happy to cut synthetic sapphire and save a few dollars, and the colour will look great, and you don't need to sell your firstborn or put your dog on some type of rations to be able to afford to cut this type of gem, I recommend it. So in today's video I'll be faceting a square gem design. Now for those people who love to learn how to facet, this is a design I highly recommend. I would put it in the top 10 designs of all the designs out there. By Marco Voltolini, it's called the Squilliant. So what the Squilliant is, it's the square variety of a standard round brilliant. And this type of design will go well with any type of gem material from quartz to sapphire, and it will give a lot of output. And when I say output, a lot of bling, a lot of return in scintillation. So this particular design is available for those people interested. You can get it from the Gemology project, and just look up Gemology project online and you can download this particular diagram. Now I'm using Gem Cut Studio, so we'll go through the sequencing of how this particular gem is cut. So one of the dilemmas I've found as a gem cutter is that there are literally thousands of designs out there to choose from. There is so much choice, and out of that choice of designs, not every one of those designs are going to be a really good looking gem once completed. Often the output or the return of scintillation is not that great, and the sequencing is not good at all, and then all the time you spent on all those intricate facets just to get that gem cut, sometimes you think just go to the stock standard cuts that work all the time. And the Squilliant is one of them, and if I could also suggest another gem you should try out, that's another Marco Voltolini design called the Portuguese. It's a take on the round Portuguese cut. So for those people who've never faceted synthetic sapphire and you think, well, maybe one day you would like to try it, I can tell you now that it behaves in exactly the same way whilst faceting as natural sapphire does. So man-made synthetic sapphire has also what is known as orange peel, which occurs in natural sapphire. So you get on the surface of the facet, once polished, all these little speckles, and usually that occurs because you haven't done a good enough pre-polish. So you've got to do a really good pre-polish before you go on to the final polish. Anyway, moving right along, in the previous scene you saw that I had faceted the first tier of the pavilion. I used a 600 grit diamond topper lap, and my intent was just to remove material quickly, trying to cut to a fairly true center point, which is the culette. Now clearly, if you would look closely, some of those facets weren't quite meeting up to a clean center point. So now I'm going to go over these facets again with a finer grade topper lap. It's going to be an 800 grit topper lap, fairly worn, and I've used a Sharpie highlighter to highlight where I'm cutting. It's very important that you do get a perfect center point, or as near perfect as possible, because this will affect the outcome of the gem later on. If you haven't cut to a true center point, your culette, then everything else as you start to build up the rest of the gem, particularly on the crown, the table will not align properly. So this is a critical part of the process of faceting a square. Now here's a really good close-up of the first two facets that I've cut, and all I'm trying to do is get a nice clean center point, and you can see how those two facets align. And here you see the rest of the facets that I've cut, and it comes to a nice clean sharp culet. Now once the first tier of the pavilion is cut and you're happy that all those facets have come to a nice clean center point, in my opinion this step where I'm cutting the girdle outline is the most critical step when cutting a square. More so with a square than round gems. With a square, each side has to be of perfect length, and when you go to do the rotation or the transfer of the gem, if the sides aren't perfectly cut to depth and are not of equal length, when you go to build up the step cuts on the crown and then cutting your table, you'll find that you cannot get that table facet aligned with the last step on the crown. And that's because somewhere along the line one of the sides of this square cut may be a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. You haven't cut it down to depth correctly. Now in a really good situation you would probably get a pair of precision calipers and measure the sides of the square, that each side is of equal length and proportion. But I'm pretty confident on my machine it's fairly accurate, and I'm listening to the sound as I'm cutting to depth, and you can hear when you've cut to depth by the grinding sound. So here's a really good close-up of where I've cut the girdle outline, including the girdle corner facets, which need to align with 4 pavilion facets. Now the next step, and I think this is really critical to not getting orange peel, so you want to avoid getting those speckles on the final polish, so you've got to do a good pre-polish. So I'm using a copper lap plus 1 drop of sewing machine oil, and I'm using an 8000 grit diamond powder, and I'm using the De Beers brand, which is a very good brand, so get a quality diamond grit. So I'll be starting off with the barrier facets, then pre-polishing the girdle outline, and then all the other facets. And when I do the final polish, which you won't see, I'll be using a tin lap with a 50,000 grit diamond De Beers, and I'll be going over those facets, starting with the barriers, then doing the girdle outline, and then all the rest of the pavilion facets. Of course there are different sequencing to the way people do a pre-polish and a final polish. I kind of always like getting the polishing of the barriers out of the way, because they do meet up to the girdle outline, and then I'll go into that girdle outline and get that complete. Now as I said, you can do it a different way, but that's my method. In the following scene you'll see that I've cut and polished the entire pavilion, and then I'll go on to faceting the crown. So I'll be signing off now with the narration, and stand by of course for the final reveal right at the end of the video. Wishing everyone great health during these times, and I'll see you in the next video. It's bye for now.